losing my mind.
Usually when you play a horror game, you're always thinking of these things like, oh, it's going to be jump scares and it's going to be all about trying to survive and not die. And usually the plot gets lost along the way. The narrative just doesn't quite live up to your hopes and expectations. Very rarely does a game focus, especially in the horror genres, on narrative. But I am pleased to say Still Wakes the Deep really puts the narrative in the forefront of this horror game, and I think it is all the better for it. In Still Wakes the Deep, you play as Kaz McLeary, an electrician aboard an oil rig set in the 1970s, who's there to fix the electricity and the electrical parts of the oil rig itself. But unfortunately, due to the drilling incident that happens in the game, you will find that Kaz and his fellow crewmates will be basically trying to survive the unknown, and I am here for it. Like I said, this game focuses on the story, and that's what makes this game special. This is actually, I would argue, what makes this game stand out from all of the other horror games that I have played so far this year, is the fact that I didn't try to get through this game because the horror elements were so good, which they were fine. I was here for Kaz's story, because the voice acting in these characters were just so well written, and gosh, I love it. They even got Scottish actors to play these roles, so it feels really authentic. It just sounds authentic. The way they swear all the time on this oil rig is just perfection, and I love it. And not to mention that graphically speaking, this game is beautiful. I can't believe this was a budget title, man. I turned it to performance mode, and I didn't see any difference between performance versus quality on my PlayStation 5 or on my Xbox Series X. Yes, I've played it on both platforms. That just shows you how much I've enjoyed this game. But it's a good looking game. Apart from the visuals though and the story, which again I really like, there is obviously going to be some horror elements. You'll have some instances where you'll have to try to sneak your way around certain enemies, or you'll have to have these chase sequences where you need to bob and weave and dodge and hide when you need to, and I like that. I do very much like that. But you do need to be aware though, if you're thinking about going into this game thinking there's going to be a lot of elements to explore on this oil rig, this game is a very linear based video game. There is not a lot of exploration and things to discover in this game. They do have a few subtle collectibles and things you can do, like you can discover dead bodies, for instance, to see who's lived and who's died, and you'll have the option to answer the phone. I know, very invigorating stuff. But as far as collectibles gone, or being able to explore the oil rig, all of that is put to the back burner because they really wanted to focus on delivering the story, and I like it. I can see a lot of people though not liking it as much. If you're someone who likes a lot of lore heavy stuff and likes to be able to walk around and discover all these little things, you're going to be disappointed in Still Wakes the Deep, because like I said, it is extremely linear. There is just not a lot to discover, so to speak. And the method you're going to be using to traverse around the oil rig will be walking, running, climbing, and occasionally jumping and hoping you don't die. There are some little minor puzzle and platforming elements involved in this game as well. And naturally, being an electrician, you're going to have some electricity to deal with along the way. Plus, there's also the spooky, scary monsters that may or may not be trying to kill you as well. What I'm trying to really say is be prepared to die. Death feels kind of inevitable in this game. Not because you can't technically avoid everything, because you most certainly can, but just because it's just kind of how the game shapes up. And you know what? I'm here for it. I actually like the fact that I can fall to my death, or get electrocuted, or burned to death. It's nice to know that the elements are also a threat in the game, but I have to admit, it's all about those monsters, because the designs in this game, they were truly creepy, terrifying SOBs. There's just nothing quite like when you're playing a horror game and you finally get to encounter the creature or creatures in the game, and then you get to see what type of threat level they are. And the monsters in this game all have a little bit of a different approach you need to take in order to evade or avoid those certain monsters, and I like that. It keeps you on your toes, and thankfully, you know what, this game, and I think this is actually a strength of the game, is only about 5 to 6 hours long, depending on how good you are at, not dying. I wasn't that good, so it took me a little bit of extra time, but the length feels perfect. It doesn't try to bloat itself up with a bunch of extra padding in terms of content. You're not going around trying to find needless collectibles or do these extra side activities. It really does want you to focus on the story elements that have been provided here, and I like that. And for roughly about $30, I think that's a good price to pay for this type of game. Like I said, I played this on the Xbox Series X first through the Game Pass, and then I decided to buy the physical copy for my PlayStation 5. And after playing through it now twice, I still really enjoy this game, even though I was perfectly aware of what was going on and what I needed to do. And I think the reason why I have no problems going back to this game is because the narrative, honestly, it just hooked me. It got under my skin, and it was a really well-told story, one that I will have no problem revisiting time and time again. When it comes to Still Wakes the Deep, it was a very delightful experience, one that I really enjoyed because of its linearity. It seems kind of strange when I'm praising games at this point for being very, very linear and very focused on what it wants to do, just for the sake, because, like I said, I'm so sick of all these games with 1,000 things to collect and to go do all these extra things with 2,500 side quests and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's nice in some cases, but sometimes, man, you just want to play a game and have it be straightforward, and Still Wakes the Deep is exactly that. Having said that, I still personally do wish there were a few secrets to discover, and like I said, they do technically have some, but I would have liked a few more collectibles to give me even more lore here, or just something fun that helps break the linearity just ever so slightly, because like I said, I personally really liked how straightforward the game was, but even I can admit that this game could have used a few more things to discover. With all that said, now it's time for the letter grade, and if you don't know, I give letter grades, A being the best and F being the worst, and Still Wakes the Deep. Depending on who you are, you're going to have a different impression of this game, but for me, man, I personally absolutely loved it. I'm going to give it a B+, and I was this close to bumping it up to an A-, just because it was just such a fun video game to play. My wife watched me play through it all the way through on the first one, peeking through her hands, because she gets totally into these horror games like I do, and we had a ton of fun. It's one game that I absolutely am going to recommend. It's definitely one of my favorite games that came out this year, so if you haven't had a chance, give it a shot. It's a little bit different, but I like that. It's strange, like I said, when you get a game that's so linear focused and there's not much to do other than just progress the story, but honestly, it feels right at home. That's all I wanted, and this game delivered. Woo! It feels good to get this one out of my way. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about this game if you've played it. Are you interested in it now? Please be interested in it now. I really want as many people possible to play this game. It's from the same people that did Amnesia, by the way, so if that gives you any inclination as to what you're getting into, there you have it. And as always, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. Be sure to subscribe to my channel to get more horror video games and other video game reviews. And I am Bradley Overrated, out like a trout. Praise be to Yevon, glory to mankind. That's a mouthful. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.